pay attention.
Do violent video games actually promote aggression and violence among teens? The video games phenomenon is somewhat new in this modern society. Although they often to be entertaining, the contents have become much more violent and disturbing as computing technology has become much more advanced. These days, the popularity of violent video games has caused an increase in controversy. I strongly believe that playing violent video games promotes violence in young adolescents. Anytime the huge controversy about violent video games comes up, there are always huge stereotypes being thrown around. Playing violent video games promote aggression. They influence kids that hurting others is satisfactory and teaching children that violence is an acceptable approach to solving conflicts and achieving goals. However, there are both pros and cons about playing video games. While playing these games, two hormones are affected: dopamine, a feel-good chemical that the brain releases when you are engaging in pleasurable, healthy activities, and cortisol, the fight-or-flight hormone that is released when you perceive that you are in danger. It also serves as a necessary self-protective purpose. However, the human body is not meant to receive a continual influx of this hormone in the bloodstream, which is exactly what happens when you participate in violent video games that raise your stress levels. Because these hormones are affected by how often you play video games, especially those that are violent, you see changes neurologically and psychologically. They have been linked to changes in the brain that can affect a person's ability to thrive in a social environment or react appropriately to normal human interactions. They can also physically affect the brain, causing it to effectively short-circuit from overstimulation. A major effect caused by the overstimulation is aggression, which, in turn, influences violence. A recent study shows that playing violent video games for extended periods of time decreases blood flow to frontal regions of the brain that control aggressive behavior and emotional outbursts, making the player more prone to engage in violent behaviors. Also, because these types of games reward players for being more violent, this instinct for approval may carry over into real life and put the player and his or her loved ones in harm. This correlates with the most recent München, Germany gunman shooting that occurred on July 1st that killed 9 people, particularly teens. A search of his belongings revealed that he was also an avid player of first-person shooter video games, including Counter-Strike, officials state. However, on a less serious note, mothers who have kids who play violent video games experience aggression and minor violence all the time while trying to talk to their sons or ask simple questions.
His mom walks into his room and just watch this.
Mum, go away! I'm in my room! Do I make myself clear? Get out my room! Out my room! I told you this is my world. Yes, I will be down in a second. I'm in the middle of a game! Get out!
So let's take a look at this link between these recent teen killers and video games.
Violent video games increase aggressive behavior as much as lead exposure decreases children's IQ scores.
Where is the artistic value of shooting innocent victims?
They put guns in the hands of little kids and teach them how to kill.
He was trained to kill with Call of Duty and other video games.
I'm a professor of economics at the University of Texas at Arlington, and a casual gamer. I'm also a parent of children who enjoy video games, and I was curious to find out if video games could cause them to harm others. So I did some research. I conducted 3 studies to investigate the link between real-world video game usage and actual crime or fighting. These studies used different methodologies and different data sources, and in all 3 cases, I found that more video game playing is actually associated with less real-life violence. That's right, less. A 100% increase in violent video game consumption led to a 1% statistically measurable decrease in violent crime. Okay, that's not a big decrease, but it undermines the claim that violent video games increase violence. Playing video games is an hour that they're not out on the streets getting into trouble. I'm not alone in my findings. Recently, other researchers have published findings that cast further doubt on the link between violent video games and actual violence. But all this means that, however well-intentioned the calls for restrictions on violent video games are, as a society, we would be censoring games based on a mistaken belief that they cause violence, and could actually be leaving Americans exposed to more real-life harm. Contrary to popular belief, youth violence has steadily declined over the past 20 years, exactly when video games have become popular. This is hardly consistent with the idea of games causing violence. When people are violent, it's not because games made them that way.
Video games are a huge cause of aggression and violence in young adolescents today, but the stats stand correctly on their own that playing violent video games does not increase violence in teens. The only way to help this situation is if parents step up to the plate and limit gaming time, as well as restricting the types of games they can play.